It's a cold and miserable day here in Washington. Little freezing rain. They're talking about the weather dropping down into the 20s tomorrow. A good day for a long, slow braise. And so I woke up this morning looking for some veal shanks and had to go to 3 different stores to find them. We got at Whole Foods. This is a little over 3 pounds. This is not a cheap cut of meat. This was selling for, I believe, $18 a pound. So this is nearly $60 worth of meat here. So we're going to be very careful what we do with it. First, we're going to tie it, and then we're going to sear it off before we go put together the mirepoix for the long, slow braise. One of the nice things about Osso Buco is that we also get the benefit of the marrow and the bones, which we can eat as well. First thing I'm going to do is tie these things up so they don't fall apart after they have braised and gotten very loose. With a length of string, I'm going to make a simple slip knot about in the middle. I'm going to open it up and put it around the veal shank. Again, this is just cotton string. And I'm going to close this up to tighten the string around the shank. And notice I have 2 long ends now. I'm going to go around the other side. Do a couple of turns around into themselves. And tighten there. And finish the knot. And I'll cut this string off. And there we have a nice Osso Buco that we can sear off, and it will keep its shape and also will hold itself together during the braising process. We're using a cast aluminum pan, and it does have a nonstick coating on it, and we've been preheating it ahead of our putting the shanks in it. This is a 12-inch skillet. Our shanks have been tied and are salted on both sides. We're going to use a little bit of olive oil to lube up the pan. And then we're just going to add our shanks, make sure they get good contact with the bottom of the pan so we get good browning. We want to keep them well spaced so that they sear rather than steam. And we'll let these sear for 3 or 4 minutes on each side. After 3 minutes, we flip the shanks. This is about the color you want to see. That's a really nicely seared shank. The way you get that is making sure there's enough oil in the pan so that enough of the meat actually touches and is getting seared. You can see this particular shank here did not get seared as well on the bottom, partially because that bone is right there. Usually when you do a sear like this, after you've seared it, it will be a pretty side and a less pretty side. And when we put them in our braising dish, we'll make sure the pretty side is up on each of these shanks. So we'll let these go for another 3 minutes. Then we'll work on the mirepoix. The next step is to work with our mirepoix, which is generally 2 parts onion to 1 part carrots and 1 part celery. These are all just approximate measurements. This looks like we have a medium sized onion and a small onion. We've got some baby carrots and some celery I roughly chopped. I'm going to pre-chop some of this onion into smaller pieces, and then we're going to do some pulsing in the Cuisinart to pulse it down. We don't want it too fine, but we don't want big heavy chunks of this in the sauce.
Yes.
Hold on. We're joined by my daughter, who's been helpful in the kitchen, and she's going to take over this part of it, which is to basically rough chop, or actually finely chop the mirepoix. So Maddie, go ahead and put that in the Cuisinart. You can see we've pre-chopped the vegetables so that they're easier for the Cuisinart to manage equally. And we'll do a pulse on this until we get the right dice. Put the top on. Ooh, probably have to plug it in too. Oops. Sorry. So you see the pulse button, which we've already done. Go ahead and pulse that for this is off pulse, yes. More than that. Good, stop. Keep going. Stop. Do it one more time. Stop. Now take a spoon and let's. Yeah. And take the sides. Look at the sides and see how that dice looks. Make sure it's even. Looks like we can probably do. And you can get down deep too. Good. Let's do a couple more pulses and I think we're pretty good. You can see where we are with this dice. It's still it's pretty fine. See if you can see it in the light. So I think just a couple more pulses and we'll be done. Other side? Yeah. All the way. It's got to go all the way on. Right. Stop. Do it again. Good. That should do it. Let's just see. Pull out a little spoonful of that. Put it in a light, yeah. Yeah, that looks perfect. So that's fine enough that it won't make the sauce too chunky, but it's hearty enough that it will still not be too soupy as we saute it off. When we seared the shanks, it left behind what we call fond, which are these brown pieces in the pan, which are delicious and add to the sauce's flavor. When we put the onions and the entire mirepoix in the pan, the moisture from that mirepoix will help loosen the fond and incorporate it into the sauce. We're preheating the pan right now, and we're going to hit it with a little olive oil. Take our mirepoix, pour it in here. It's obviously not preheated enough because you should hear a sizzle. No problem. It'll come up to its temperature. Put the spurs to it. And we'll get that sauteing. This will take about 5 minutes at a medium heat to cook through. We've been sauteing this off about 5 minutes. You don't want it to brown. You're just trying to evaporate some of the moisture in the celery and in the onion and concentrate the flavors. The next step is, or the final step of the mirepoix, is to add some garlic. So I've got about 4 cloves of garlic here. I'm just going to use a garlic press. Press those in. I know 4 sounds like a lot, but once this gets sauteed and then it gets braised, that harshness of the garlic will soften. And we'll stir that in. It smells great, by the way. And we'll just saute this off for another minute or so to cook the garlic through. Alright, we've finished with the mirepoix. The garlic is finished cooking. Now to finish off the sauce, we're going to add about a cup of crushed tomato, and probably about a cup or so of white wine. Let this come to a boil, and we'll use this liquid to deglaze the pan. This will be the basis for our sauce for the Osso Buco. Alright, to finish our braising sauce, we're going to add just a few more adjuncts. Maddie, have it like a pinch of salt. It's more, a little more than that. Yeah. And we'll taste it. Yeah, a little more than that. A little more than that, honey. We're not salting an egg. Some fresh thyme we have from our garden that's set in spite of the... let me just put it right in there. We'll pull it out before we cook it. We still have... our thyme is continuing to thrive in spite of the cold weather. And then a couple of bay leaves. We actually have 4 bay leaves here. That's fine. Just leave them whole. They're small, so we'll put a few more in there. And then if you could put a few grinds of black pepper in here, honey. Great. So we'll just stir these together. This is the basis for our braising liquid. And we will pour this over the Osso Buco.
Okay.
So our Osso Buco is all looking pretty side up in our baking dish. I'm just going to pour the braising liquid over it. And note the meat itself will give off some juices as well. So although this looks a little dry, it will loosen up as the braise continues. So we're just going to make sure that the braise is all over the meat, surrounding the meat. Put the cover on, and we're going to put it into a 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes. Until, let me get the cover. For about 10 minutes, that'll just make sure everything reheats appropriately. Then we'll turn the heat down to about 300 degrees and let it slowly braise for about an hour and a half until the meat is very loose off the bone. I just pulled the Osso Buco out of the oven. It's been in there for about an hour and 45 minutes at about 300 degrees. What we want to do is make sure the meat is tender. And you can see I'm not putting any weight on this knife. And that meat is tender and ready to go. So you could, one way of doing this Osso Buco is to include Great Northern beans in this, pre-cooked Great Northern beans in this, so that they are, can be the additional starch for the meal. We have mashed potatoes that we're going to serve it with. But looking forward to this meal. So obviously the Osso Buco went over very well. No mashed potatoes, no Osso Buco, no sauce, or no meat. But what we do have left is the bone. And one of the benefits of the bone in Osso Buco is the marrow inside that bone. And I have a spoon from my childhood, my babyhood, that works wonderfully. So we can actually get in to that marrow and eat it. It is fabulous. And that is the end of that luscious piece of meat. Bon appetit.